Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Happy Friday, TGIF. And most importantly, thank you to our deployed military members for all they do for us. Being deployed, many of them are not home, obviously, with their families like most of us can be. So my Fridays are always a little extra consideration given to our deployed military members to thank them for all that they do for us. Separately and aside from that, it is Friday's Fraud Law Review. And the pick of the day this is from last month. So this is December of 25. This is about an Ohio man this time. And this was also a very long-term scheme. We had one last week, same idea, slightly different in a different state. But this guy has been convicted, so I'm going to say his name, Michael W. Honaker, age 55, of Windham, Ohio. And this took place in the Northern District of Ohio, Portage County. I'm going to jump down to what he supposedly, what he admitted he did in order to be convicted. So he began to receive, this is all interesting to me because I don't do workers' comp and I never will. He began to receive workers' compensation benefits in 1998, guys, 1998, due to an on-the-job injury he sustained. The following year, he applied for and received Social Security disability benefits in the form of the monthly cash benefits you guys are all used to. Later, he was accepted into a housing program through HUD, which is U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and began to receive subsidized housing benefits in March of 2012. So that's like 14 years after he started to receive workers' comp benefits. And what's funny to me is I thought workers' comp benefits were a lot shorter than that. And I know every state's different, so maybe it just varies. I don't know, or maybe just the rules changed. I have no idea. In 2014, he began to reside at a residence on Green Meadow Road in Windham. So that's residence with rent subsidy through HUD. That's a welfare benefit, just for the rest of you who might not connect those dots. While there at that HUD-provided subsidized rental place on Green Meadow Road in Windham, he misrepresented information about himself for the purpose of receiving increased workers' comp benefits. So he's getting workers' comp, guys, and he's getting SSD. Now, as you might know today, workers' comp and SSD, when paid for the same months, trigger a check to see if one exceeds the amount to collect by more than 80% of one's determined, well, it's ACE. It's like the monthly income you earned before you came disabled. When you're collecting workers' comp and SSD, you're not allowed to collect more than 80% of what that earlier income before you were disabled was. In a nutshell, that's a workers' comp thing. I don't do it. I can't stand thinking about it. I have a good friend who does workers' comp, so I just send it all that way. So it's interesting to me just that this is Ohio, though. I have no idea that this is going on so long, and that so he's saying wants to get increased workers' compensation benefits, which I understand would be if you have worse condition that resulted from that work involved impairment, what have you. So it says it in one application, and he submitted that he falsely claimed that, quote, going up and down the stairs several times a day is very painful. He said he falsely claimed that. And therefore, he needed a lump sum payment to renovate his home to be handicap accessible. Also, during a doctor appointment, Honecker pretended to have difficulty walking and dragged his right leg and indicated that he required a wheelchair to maneuver. In another instance, he falsely told an investigator with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation that he used crutches all day and had a brain injury. In all instances, the defendant admitted to knowing that these statements were not truthful. So how do we know they were not truthful? How was that fact found out to be? Because he admitted it. I'm going to skip over the verbiage where HUD gives them a verbal spanking. They do say that by falsely portraying himself as disabled and continuing to collect Social Security benefits, Michael Honecker committed a serious fraud that cost taxpayers more than $82,000. Cases like this demonstrate our continued commitment to identifying, investigating, and holding accountable those who exploit programs designed to help the most vulnerable. They go on and talk about who helped facilitate the investigation, but then they also go on to say that there was a co-defendant. It sounds like he had a little girlfriend, maybe a woman, co-defendant. This one was convicted too, so I'm going to say her name. Nicole E. Johnson, age 42, also of Wyndham, began to reside at the Green Meadow Road residence in 2016 without HUD authorization to do so. So you might say, well, why can't he have someone live with him? Here's why. The taxpayers are paying his rent for him. That's what HUD does. It takes the money from the working taxpayers to pay for subsidized housing for people who are unable to do so themselves. It's not for a girlfriend to move in and take advantage of that. It's only for the person who is unable. Now, if she was, I bet you there's some sort of policy, how it works, where if you want someone to live with you, they have to pay a portion of the rent. She can't just go scot-free because he has reduced rent and or scot-free. Sometimes I think it might be scot-free. So she had been previously sentenced to 24 months of probation for her role in facilitating the scheme after she pleaded guilty to making a false statement to the SSA regarding Mr. Honecker's state of health. So she kind of added in on that. So it looks like he claimed disability, fraudulently faked a lot of disabilities, as well as made statements about them. And they learned, and they don't tell us here, and it drives me crazy. How did they determine that he wasn't disabled? Did they start spying on him? I know everybody gets worried about surveillance, and I always tell people not to worry if you're not pulling a fast one, but people still get scared even though they're not guilty. I get that. As we always say, if a police officer comes to the door, you're like, even though you know you did nothing wrong. She did get ordered to pay $4,600 and change in restitution. I wonder if that's the value of the rental living for free part. I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't know, guys. That's a long time he was committing the fraud. But that's the thing, going back to the surveillance, I've never had a client be surveilled. Well, I shouldn't say that. One was in the beginning, well, many years ago, and I didn't represent him after that. It wasn't that he was lying. It was just that I didn't think that particular application was going to be a good idea. There's a lot of other things to it. It wasn't that the guy was lying, but he wasn't lying because he wasn't knowingly saying anything false. But I do think there might have been, let's put it this way. When you're on opioids for a really long time, some people get very dependent. And he would talk about how the opioids, he would say, barely touched the pain, barely touched the pain. My pain was over the top and it barely touched the pain. So he had a dependency problem of great magnitude. I don't know all the details, but I think I did part company in a nice way. This is probably close to 20 years ago because I saw that reference to the investigation and I just didn't want to be involved in terms of representing him because I really thought it was going to be put a damper on that application. If he had come back at a later date, that might have been something different. So I wouldn't be worried about being surveilled if you're not doing anything blatantly wrong. And I don't think they're out just chasing people down randomly. It's because someone gives them an alert, that they see something, whether someone keeps going to a job, has a lot of money, can't explain where it's coming from, which would, more money than one would get on SSD. Whatever the case may be, there's something that triggers it. They're not going to waste resources they do not have to be chasing people without a reason. So, and we've heard comments before when we talked about this about, oh, so like an ex beau or girlfriend can make a false claim. Yeah, anybody can make a false claim. They might find themselves in hot water if they do it, but sure, they can. And I don't believe they're going to be taken very seriously unless they have some goods. You know, the surveillance, you know, I suspect that the kind of surveillance they're going to want to do, if they're going to do foot surveillance, is when there's something concrete, like he goes to work every day at 6:30 in the morning, comes back at 6 at night. And here's the guy in his function report saying he's home all day. Is he working? Is he not? I don't know, but there's certainly a lie going on. So they can go find out if it's a lie that's material to whether or not he's disabled. So that's kind of where I think it comes from and heads towards. So if you're not doing any of that, you have no reason to worry. Like I said, I've never seen it be a problem, ever, ever, ever. All right. So that's enough for the O scamster, Michael W. Honecker, age 55. All right. Ciao, guys. Thank you again to our military. I greatly appreciate it. And I think everybody watching this does too. Be safe out there. God bless.